My daughter was born on the night she died. My daughter was curious. From a young age she posed an infinite amount of critical questions. Why do the clouds look angry before it rains? Why do people work all day if it makes them sad? How do you know you love mommy? Regardless of how many I don't know I tossed back at her. My daughter was creative, painting favorite song lyrics and beautiful images along her bedroom walls, no matter how many times I painted over them. My daughter was trusting, placing her life in my hands in spite of the hundreds, perhaps thousands, of times I failed her. My daughter died on the night of her 15th birthday. My daughter was born on the night she died, an uncommonly bleak Texas summer evening, with dark clouds threatening to split open and spill rain. She took her final breath, shallow and sluggish, as I slept soundly in the next room. She died, helpless and alone, and straining to hold on the night of her 15th birthday. She would have laid there until morning, her body growing pale and cold and rigid, if I hadn't gotten the call. The sound of the landline ringing jolted me awake at 1:30 AM. I'm ashamed to admit that I almost ignored it, but I figured it might be Charlie requesting a ride home. She was a hell of a partier even at her young age, and I lacked the necessary rapport to steer her away from the precarious road she was already traveling down at 90 miles per hour, windows down, stereo blaring. Reckless, careless, but free. That was my Charlie. I peeled myself out of bed and made my way to the kitchen, knees and back aching. God, when did I get so old? As I rushed to reach the phone before the final ring, I cleared my throat, hoarse from hours of sleep. Hello. There's a storm on the way, son. Check on Charlotte. Dad? I returned, incredulous, but the line had already disconnected. Sleep crusting my eyes and half convinced I must be dreaming, I followed the caller's instructions, pacing to my daughter's room and gently nudging the door open. The light was on. She always left the lights on, no matter how many damn times I told her I couldn't afford the electric bill. I stepped through the doorway to switch off the light. When I finally caught sight of her, really saw her and the state she was in. Her eyes were open. Her body was still, no rhythmic rising and falling of her chest. I watched as my hand, still clinging to the phone yet somehow so disconnected from my own mind or body, dialed 911. Suddenly, a paramedic was there, grabbing me by the shoulders, shaking me out of my disoriented state. I don't know how much time had passed. I was there, but not entirely. My mind was somewhere else. Years ago, I was eating ice creams with Charlie at Six Flags as she raced me to the next roller coaster. Do you want your daughter to live? The man shouted, desperate and rushed. I could only nod in response. He dashed into Charlie's room. I followed him. Another man, the head paramedic, perhaps, stopped me, blocking my path, blocking my way to Charlie. Sir, your daughter is gone, he stated flatly. What? He just said, I choked, raising a quivering digit to point at the man who'd brought me into the room mere moments ago. The man waved me off, clearly in too much of a time crunch to hear me out. I didn't feel particularly capable of speech anyway. She's been dead for too long to resuscitate traditionally. There's something else we could try, something new and experimental, but we need your permission to do so. He bent over, reaching into a black duffel bag to pull out a plastic package. I glanced around the room, unable to truly process anything he'd said. Charlie, gone. Too late. Experimental? My eyes bounced over the anxiously waiting faces of the emergency response team before fixing on the packaging in the man's hand. I'm going to need an answer, sir, he directed, firmly. I can assure you your daughter will not live unless we try this. Yes, I wheezed. All air had left my lungs. When the safety, no, the life of your child is concerned, there really is no other answer. Immediately, the emergency team set into action, forming a horseshoe around her bed. The man in charge ripped through the plastic packaging to reveal a large needle partially filled with an opaque black fluid. The alarmingly long tip of the needle glinted in the yellow light from the single lamp illuminating the room, the one that Charlie never turned off. Advancing toward the side of Charlie's bed, he spoke to me without looking at me, focused entirely on the task at hand. I'm going to perform an intracardiac injection, he explained as another paramedic used a pair of scissors to release the fabric of her shirt from her upper chest. And, well, we'll see what happens after that. His uncertainty was far from comforting. but I was out of options. He raised the needle up high and drove it down, puncturing the left side of her chest, burying the lengthy point inside. Slowly, carefully, he pushed the plunger at the opposite end to empty the liquid into her body. "Give her space," he barked, taking a few steps backwards himself. The rest of his team followed suit, leaving Charlie reclined on the bed. For 10 excruciatingly long seconds, nothing happened. I buried my face in my hands, unable to watch, the feeling of failure absolutely suffocating. My mind offered me refuge in pleasant memories once more, but Charlie needed me there. I could not leave again. Dropping my hands back down to my sides, I watched, amazed, as Charlie began to move again. Horror quickly eclipsed amazement as I realized that she wasn't moving. No, something was wriggling against the inside of her skin, straining as it attempted to tear its way from the inside out. And then, schlep. The sound of ripping, wet and loud and nauseating, tore through the smothering silence that had fallen over the room. A screech of agony pierced the air as the skin of my Charlie's face burst to split down the center. The head of some unknown creature, capped with glistening white, burst forth. The figure continued to fight, struggling to release its body from within Charlie's skin, ligaments, and tendons and vessels snapping loudly with each forceful movement. My head spinning, I steadied myself with both hands, laid flat on my knees, my breaths coming heavy and unsatisfying. The rest of her flesh erupted soon after, tearing first along the middle of her torso, the gashes splintering and spreading down to her arms and legs. The strange figure, red and bloody and severe, finally emerged from its trappings, to sit upright with a sickening squelch, glancing frantically around the room. The wheels in my old brain finally turned, allowing me to make some sense of what I was seeing. The figure that sat on the bed before me, surrounded by my daughter's flesh, loose and deflated, appeared to be the insides of a person, like you'd see in a biology textbook. The diagram just after the organ systems, just before the fully fleshed human. Just bone and muscle coated in blood, slick and red. "Dad," the figure squeaked, confusion and pain readily apparent in her voice, Charlie's voice. "What's going on?" The medical team explained the process to her in words I couldn't even begin to grasp. Something about secret experiments, and a final life-saving measure when the small window of opportunity for CPR and other resuscitation methods had passed. Not even fully tested yet. She was their guinea pig. Needless to say, she didn't take it well. I was assured that she would heal, though it would take time, rest, and care. They'd send a nurse to keep her safe and comfortable, but Charlie would have to stay hidden throughout the healing process for obvious reasons. The nurse arrived the next morning, a sprightly young woman named Annie with dark skin and short cropped hair. Her bedside manner was unparalleled. Charlie took to her almost immediately, though the steady dose of pain meds she delivered may have helped facilitate the relationship. Even still, Charlie refused my company entirely. Our relationship was shaky at best before this. I could only sit outside her door, listening to her constant sobbing. I figured I needed to do something eventually, so I gently knocked, before pressing her bedroom door open. She appeared to have healed very little, if at all, but it was hard to judge as she was entirely swathed in bandages save for her eyes and mouth. "Hey, Char," I called from the doorway, moving hesitantly across the room. She provided no response, rolling over in bed to look out the window. "Listen," I began, sighing. "I don't know what happened to you, Charlie, but well, it must have been bad," I declared, kicking myself internally as the words fell from my mouth. "Stupid and misguided. It kills me to see you like this. To see you in pain. I can't stand to know that you've been hurt. I guess I just wanted to say, I'm sorry." Charlie slowly turned her head to face me, her bandages brushing loudly against the bedsheets. "I don't want you to say you're fucking sorry," she seethed, lidless eyes fixed on me in an unblinking, hateful stare. She hesitated before screaming, "Get out. Get the fuck out." I respected her wishes, backing out of her room and closing the door. I rested my forehead on the white wooden barrier, defeated, unsure of how to get through to her. "You fucking idiot." A voice, Anna's voice, came from behind me. Startled, I turned toward her. She had a dose of medication in one hand, on her way to deliver it to my daughter. "I don't know what to do," I admitted, tears welling in my eyes. Annie laughed gently in disbelief. "You don't know what to do?" she chided softly, somehow still comforting through her criticism. She died. I don't know what happened to her either, but I do know she won't talk until she feels safe and heard. She's just a child. Be patient with her. The next morning, I visited her room again. The visible muscles on her face tugged the corners of her mouth into a frown. I gingerly stepped across the room to perch on the edge of her bed. Tell me how you feel, Charlie. Help me understand. She flinched, clearly unsure of how to respond. I was hit with the gut-wrenching realization that I'd never really talked to my own daughter. He was my friend. I trusted him. I've lost everything, she lamented, casting her eyes downward, impossibly white against the muscles surrounding them. I can't leave this house. I can't go to school. I can't see my friends, as if I ever had any in the first place. I feel so sad, and so weak, and so stupid. Charlie swallowed loudly before adding, but mostly, I feel so angry. Tell me more about that, I urged, turning to face her directly. She shook her head slowly, weighing the gravity of her feelings. I don't understand why this happened, and it fills me with hatred. How could he do this to me? I went to bed on my 15th birthday, and I woke up this. I don't even know what I'm anymore, she fumed, hatred twisting her voice. And I hate myself too, because somehow I hate you more than I hate him. I hung my head, afraid of what she'd say. I hate that you didn't protect me. I hate that you let me die. But most of all, I hate that you never wanted me, she ranted, sitting up to confront me. Oh, of course I want you, Char, I stammered. She scoffed in response. Don't pretend like you care about me, she growled. You left me. 4 years after mom died, you'd leave for weeks at a time. Came back to throw a couple $100 my way for food. I raised myself. I was only 10. I was a fucking kid. Dad, you wanted me to die that night because you never wanted me. The accusation hurt like a knife twisting in my chest, threatening to drive me mad. I hate you, Dad, she screeched, striking my shoulder with a closed fist. I hate you. I hate you. I hate you, she repeated, pummeling my side with each admission, flinching upon each impact, her bandages staining red with each blow. The repeated exertion exhausted her until she collapsed on my shoulder. Sadness overcame the force of her hatred as she began to cry. Charlie, I sighed, searching for the words to fix 15 years worth of shitty parenting. When I was a boy, I dreamed of being an astronaut, a firefighter, a fighter pilot, an inventor. I never dreamed of being a father. She recoiled in response, understandably so. I only ever cared about myself. When you were little, I resented you for stealing my youth, squashing my dreams. Really, I used you as an excuse for my own failures. And my relationship with you is my greatest failure. When your mom passed, she left me with a daughter I didn't even know. 10 years old, and I didn't even know your favorite color. It was periwinkle, she muttered. Not getting to know you as a little girl is my life's greatest regret, I choked, balling my hands into tight fists. Because once I came back, once you started to let me in, I'd never loved anyone until I got to know you. Your favorite color is red, not bright red, but deep crimson, blood red. You love that horrible music, men screaming over harsh melodies, but I love it because it never fails to bring that smile to your face. You love to paint giant pictures across your bedroom wall. Your laugh is so abrupt and so big that it just swells and fills the air, infecting me like a contagion that I'll never grow immune to. You are the strongest person I know, stronger than you know. You came out when you were 13. You socked a guy in the face for snapping your bra. You literally died, and yet you're still here fighting. You're fucking invincible, Charlie, and we will get through this. A hesitant smile crept across her bandaged face. The way I treated you after mom died is unacceptable, inexcusable. I don't expect you to ever forgive me. The truth is, I missed out. You didn't. I was a horrible man. But you were perfect. You are the best thing to ever happen to me, and I will spend every day of the rest of my miserable life making up for the many years I was the worst thing to ever happen to you. The next morning, when Annie went to change Charla's bandages, she found that a flimsy layer of skin had grown across her body, paper thin and almost translucent, but there, nonetheless. The police came soon after to take Charla's statement. They'd been briefed on her strange condition, but they recoiled in horror upon the first sight of her fresh skin, barely concealing her underlying musculature as Anira wrapped her bandages. "I can't talk about it," she whispered in my ear as the detective stared. "The words won't come out. Every time I try to talk, I just feel my thoughts spinning out of control. My chest gets tight. I can't." Holding my index finger up, I shuffled out of the room, returning with the paints I'd confiscated from her years prior. Then paint it. Her smile was so immense I worried it would tear her freshly grown skin. Charlie spent the following weeks alone in her room, refusing any interruptions outside of her medical needs. Each morning when Anira bandaged her, she was equal parts stunned and overjoyed to note how her skin had grown, thickened, still pale beyond belief, but stronger. When she came out to announce that she'd finished, I scrambled out of my chair and rushed down the hallway to see her work, a vibrant mural, monstrous in size. I followed it from the left, her and a man, early 20s maybe, drinking cans of Pabst Blue Ribbon, detailed down to the droplets of condensation on the cans, then to my daughter, hunched over thick lines of white powder on the bathroom sink. Then, Charlie sitting on the man's lap, beaming as she clutched a fresh pack of Camel menthols. The images grew hazy as the sequence continued, my daughter crawling on all fours to the back door, then the man cradling her in his arms, carrying her to bed, tucking her in, pulling the covers all the way up to her chin, like I never did for her. Charlie in her bed, lips tainted blue, storm clouds in the sky forming the image of my late father. The final image depicted Charlie ripping out of her skin that night, born again. Why did you paint him?" I stuttered, pointing to my father's likeness in the mural. She shrugged. "I'm not sure. I know he's gone, but I just feel like he's always looking out for me. He called me that night, told me a storm was coming. That's why I found you." As the next year passed, so did my daughter's recovery. Her hair grew back first in patches, fine and dark. It continued to grow, but she opted to keep it short. The man who left Charlie for dead was sent to prison. Delivery of a controlled substance to a minor, 2 years. Her eyes swelled with tears upon the news. Slowly, normalcy trickled back into both of our lives. I returned to work. Char still wasn't ready for school, but she buried herself in her own studies, diving into famous works of art and creating her own. She hurled cans of paint to cover the mural of her untimely death and repainted images of her, of me and of Annie, of us together, towering and colossal. Somehow, through the abject horror of the situation, we all became a family. Though Char's skin was still fragile, she was thriving in a way I never thought possible. That is, until he got out. He didn't end up serving his full time, was instead let out early on good behavior. The lead detective on her case delivered the poor news in person. There was nothing she could do. Wordlessly, Char pushed out her chair, stood up, and retreated to her room, slamming the door behind her. Things fell apart from there. Charlie's skin began to take on a new appearance, no longer fragile but hardened, rough, cracked, almost scaled over in some places. Jagged, sharp to the touch. Annie confided her worries in me. She was unsure of how her recovery would continue without the assurance of safety. She wasn't safe with him out there. He called the house last night. "Keep your whore daughter away from me," he taunted, voice brimming with poison. "If either of you come anywhere near me, you'll be sorry." As the man hung up, I immediately knew what I had to do. Charlie hadn't come out of her room for days, and I needed to guarantee her safety. I pulled my gun from my bedside drawer, my thoughts disorganized and unable to form a coherent plan. I didn't know how or where I would find him, but I would. And when I did, I would end him. For Charlie. I sat in my chair for several hours, alone in absolute silence, gun resting in my lap as I hardened myself emotionally for the task at hand. I expected the right moment to appear to me. It didn't. I decided to go anyway. I stood up and moved across the room, down the hallway towards the front door. The door swung open. I jumped back in surprise. Char stood in the entry, covered in blood, clutching a knife. She rushed towards me, enveloping me with her thin arms in a tight and desperate embrace. "Daddy, I killed him," she sobbed into my chest, staining my shirt with her tears and his blood. "I killed him, I killed him, I killed him," she moaned repeatedly. The knife clattered to the ground as she wailed. I thought it would make me feel better. I thought I'd get my power back, my life back, but it feels like I just gave it all back to him. I feel so empty, Dad. I feel like I'm dead again. Plunged headfirst back into the darkness. Her hardened skin split and cracked, falling off in jagged shards, and piling on the floor as each sob racked her fragile body. I released her to see the figure I'd seen years ago, the new Charlie who ripped out of my dead daughter, red and severe, distraught and miserable. I wasn't sure what to say, so I just said, I'll never let anything bad happen to you. Not again. My daughter is strong beyond compare, refusing to surrender, fighting to, even past, the bitter end. My daughter is resilient, clawing herself out of death's grip and back to the most normal life possible. My daughter is brave, endlessly inspiring, but still, human. I write this as a testament to her, what happened to her, and my love for her, before I turn myself in for her crime. I will take responsibility for this, because she has stars in her eyes, and a melody in her laugh. Because she is a far better person than me. Because I'm her father, and I will protect her, give her the second chance I never deserved from her. My daughter was born on the night she died.